Thank you for tuning in to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, where co-hosts Matt Bucher and Marty Wheeler interview motocross and off-road racing and riding icons to capture their stories and experiences for you. So buckle up those helmets, grab a handful of throttle, and get ready to listen to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 2. This is the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast with your follically but yet friendly friend and host, Matt Bucher. I am joined by my humble co-host, Marty MX Express Wheeler. And tonight we introduce you to our first guest, episode number 2, to Mr. Log Road, Mr. Jeff Beerbower. Jeff, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good. I'm good. Marty, you good?
I'm good.
Good. Well, this is exciting. And number one, thank you, Jeff, again for joining us. As I mentioned kind of earlier before the episode started, thanks for jumping on board into something that, we haven't done before. And, I would say we're not podcast experts. Hopefully by the, a couple episodes in, we will be experts, but we appreciate you being the guinea pig, I guess, if you will. So we appreciate that. So tell us, kind of jumping right to the topic, the reason we started this podcast was out of inspiration for the riders and the, track owners like yourself, because as you know, the COVID-19 coronavirus obviously shut down the whole country and the whole world, if you will. How is this affecting you?
Well, it's affecting us a lot. Like, every rider out there. We spent all winter preparing and, got a schedule plus preparing our equipment and the track. And it's just sitting there. It's giving me a chance to do more stuff with it. But, yeah, it's a big effect.
Are you going to your track and maintaining it and prepping? Are you able to do that?
Yes. We can do that. And I'm basically going up there probably 4 days a week right now, maybe 5 days a week working up there also.
So tell the audience, I've been to Log Road when I was a little guy. I remember it's in Coldwater, Michigan, correct?
Well, west of Coldwater, Bronson, Michigan's the actual, town or zip code, but about 10 miles west of Coldwater, Michigan.
Okay.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
You just ruined it for me.
What happened?
Well, you told him where he's at, where the track was.
Oh,
because, we have a saying over, because, since we're MX Express and he's Log Road over there, we did find out, I haven't totally been able to get exactly if it's the truth, fact, or fiction, and we've done a fact check on me yet, but, you do realize that Log Road is the second best practice track in Ohio. But Jeff did remind me that it's in Michigan. So, and then you did again. So it just ruined the whole stats thing. And I thought,
I'm sorry.
I just bad.
Well, it is a 401 area code to call it the track phone.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So how long has let's kind of start in the beginning. How long have you been involved? When did the track start? Let's walk through a little history of the track.
Well, far as I know, I wasn't part of the track when it started. That was clear back in 1973 or 74. I know some of the people that was involved with it, and it was a club, and they run races till the early 80s, and then they stopped running races for a few years, and then I think it's 87, Barry Mayo from Delta there actually run the track up till the early 90s.
I hate to cut you up. I did not know that. Here Marty and I talked about this as we kind of building this, this podcast, deal. And I told him, I said, I bet we're going to learn a lot. And if we're learning a lot, we hope the audience learns a lot. So that's something I wasn't aware of.
Yeah. And Barry run that till the early 90s, and then he acquired Delta, and he had Milan Cycle City up in Milan, Michigan, and he run those two. And then another guy Terry Sullivan run Log Road for couple 3 years, and then in '97 was our first season of running Log Road.
And are you by yourself, or do you have a partner or anything like that?
Well, to begin with, I had Bart Newman as a partner. He was a District 14 chairman, and at the District 14 newspaper, you probably all know who Bart is. And his schedule got pretty busy. It might be 5 or 6 years ago or 7 years ago now with his job and everything. So he had to get out from being a partner. And yeah, it's just me now, me and my wife, Kathy.
Okay. So it's a family affair. That's really really neat. Well, obviously Marty and I, we're part of, family businesses as well, and there's certainly dynamics with that, I'm sure. And I work with why are you chuckling, Jeff?
Yeah.
Well, you know what the saying is, right? The only people you can get to work for free is your family. So that's why the family's involved.
Volunteer position, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Head volunteer on the name badge there. But so you and your wife operate the track, and you're handling the day-to-day stuff. And is that primarily your job? Is that what you do day-to-day? Okay.
Yeah. When we first started the track, I had a full-time job. Then I basically retired from that. I had 25 years in. Not that I'm retired. And
right.
I worked as a motorcycle mechanic too, and I also do a lot of out of my own shop. Not really motorcycle work, but some machine or fabricating and working on equipment and stuff like that.
Well, I gotta hand it to you. Whoever built your website did a good job. I was snooping around on that and doing again some recon work before the episode, and I was really the flash player when you hit the homepage. That's really really good. You got a good website, so hats off to whoever built it. Yeah. So how long is the track?
Well, I'd say the length of the track. We got a few different ways we can run it. And we change that up a little bit, but it's probably 1.3, 1.4 miles long.
Gotcha. And is natural terrain, or is there, you got big doubles and triples, or you just kind of more of a natural, safe, more, natural track?
It's it's got some long jumps, all of them follow the natural terrain as far as the hill and stuff like that. And they're kind of like for tabletop. They're not really voided out that much, so you can jump and land the jumps anywhere possible. But I try to follow the obstacles with the terrain of the track.
Gotcha. So did you grow up racing, or how did you get into the motocross scene?
Well, when I was 10 or 11 years old, I begged for a mini bike or a motorcycle, and I had a couple motorcycles, and when I turned 16, I drove myself to the races, sometimes with one of my friends, and because I always wanted to race.
So who was like your biggest supporter? Was it your parents or a friend or an uncle or something that kind of got you into it, or kind of, got you to the races kind of thing? Or
couple of my friends in high school, we would go together or would drive separate and meet up there or something like that. Or sometimes we threw 3 bikes in a van with 1 seat, and I had to sit in lawn chairs and stuff to go to the races.
But you had a seatbelt on, right? I mean, you were buckled, you were prepared. He
had his belt on.
He had your belt on.
Yes.
Yeah. Size 34 belt, right? Or 32.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, can we go back to, he was talking about his train, the track that he's got there.
Yeah.
And I just got to give a big shout out to Jeff, because I shouldn't say this, and please don't repeat it to anybody, because I'll deny it. His track is definitely my kids' favorite track. And even though they get to ride anytime they want on my track, they're Jeff Bauer. Yeah, Jeff Beerbower's track is the track they want to be at. They want to go at. They love that track. And when we started doing something with ours. Jeff came out before we ever started dozer, tractor, anything on it, and come out and walked the whole thing and told us what we needed to do. So he's the inspiration behind our track over here, to make it safe and make it, make some of the tracks and some of the turns and jumps and stuff at ours. So like I said, realistically, I want to say we're log road the second, because he helped us, like I said, he made it so we could go in and took that learning curve and sort of helped us a lot with that. So we took his knowledge and we jumped ahead of us playing the games, and trying to get ours to work well. So Jeff's track, like I said, my boys love it. They don't get out there as much as they'd like to. Now they start to grow up and have to have a job for themselves. So they have to work for a living a little bit more. But no, the track is, I say, I love the track. I don't ride or race as much anymore, but I love the track too. And my boys, that's their number one track here.
No, thank you, Marty.
Well, I think what I find interesting, when we started talking about bringing guests on, and you were the first one that Marty mentioned, and because we thought, okay, how does this coronavirus affecting, obviously it's affecting the racers, right? They're chomping at the bit. It's spring. They're ready to get the bikes going and get out and ride and race and do their thing. And I think the other part is the track owners, the operators. You guys are putting in, tons of time and that kind of thing. And I find it really neat that we have two track operators on the podcast let's be honest. I'm not trying to get this thing to go viral, boys, but I think it's really cool that you have, I would say, competitors, if you will. Probably you're competing for some of the same, practice guys and race guys, on the podcast talking about this serious subject and how it's affecting you. In my industry, there's no way I'm going to get on with one of my competitors on a podcast. No way. To be honest.
Yeah, we're not really competitors, because the more tracks you have, the more riders you're going to have. If you don't have no tracks, you can't build riders. You need to have tracks around. More tracks. It's just going to increase the riders, the popularity. A person isn't going to buy a dirt bike if they don't have a place to ride it.
That's a fantastic point and an accurate point. Yeah, if you don't build it, they won't come, right? I mean, it's the same kind of concept. So, Marty, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, my family too. When we started putting this together, our thought was that we didn't want to. Like I said, we talked about it a little bit in our podcast. The first one is we sort of moved from our home into some place where we could have people and not worry about having people on our own property. But we thought about this track and how we're going to do it and what we're going to do. And, right now there's not enough riders to go around. And so the least thing we want to do is try to take riders away from Jeff or Milan or Delta or whatever, because then we're all starving to death, So we started out as a practice track, we're not that big. We can't really handle the crowds. We're trying to gear towards younger ones a little bit more. So really our crowd really is different than Jeff's, but hopefully our crowd turns into ones that'll move on to racing where Jeff is. We have a lot of kids and a lot of young ones that really haven't stepped up to racing yet. So, and I say there's, unfortunately, there's sometimes I think people feel a little threatened about, like I said, track, I'm a track, he's a track, and, we don't want anything to do with them. But, I just believe there's so much knowledge. Like I said, how many years now since 90? When did you start, Jeff?
97. Yeah.
97. From 97 until now, just think of all the things that he's seen and done and tried that, if you can communicate together, you jump over a lot of hurdles that I would see over the next 10 years trying to get to where he is today. And like I said, not many people will share that knowledge with you. And that's why Jeff, I said, I was surprised. He drove right over the track and he showed us all the stuff. We walked the whole track. And so, for me, it makes my track better. Hopefully produces a group that really says, I really like that track. I like to ride. I want to race now. And we point them to Jeff, and Jeff gets to see him on a racetrack. And we try to take our schedules too, and we look at our schedules and try to make sure we try not to overlap, some of our racing and stuff. So
Yeah, and sometimes you're going to overlap. You just can't help that. There's only so many weekends.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we're in the north, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you're limited. You're limited to what you're going to do. But
right.
I think that's great, and I think that's hopefully this relate your dynamic, both of you guys together, gets communicated in the podcast that you are friends and you're helping each other out. And Jeff, it sounds like you almost been. I don't want to venture to say mentor, but you kind of mentoring Marty and his family on how to do things. And Marty mentioned hurdles, and what is, if looking back, what was one of the biggest, from 97 to now, what has been the biggest hurdle for you operating the track?
That's really hard to say. I don't know if I'd do anything different. It's just the biggest hurdle is having the track where you can communicate and keep your program going. We want to, be, bam, 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 running an event where people ain't waiting, they're not spending all day there, the best you can, and the communication so people don't miss their riding or racing, and signed up in the right classes and that type of stuff. The manage, not the actual track itself, the running of the track.
More like I guess you call it like the infrastructure of your
Yeah,
your people management. Yeah,
yeah,
I can see
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I spend most of my time on. Most of the work I'm doing up there right now is for the infrastructure. Like we run a conduit from the finish line to the registration, like 1,000 foot. Put a fiber optic cable out there so we can either put some cameras out there, or when we use transponders for like a qualifier or something like that. And that's what I spend a lot of my time working on.
Gotcha. So
wow.
what going forward, what do you think the biggest hurdle is? I mean, you hear stories of, motorcycle sales, dirt bike sales, ATV sales are down. UTVs are growing through the roof, right? The UTV segment.
Yeah.
But what is that a big kind of a worrisome for you, or you think it's are you seeing what you're hearing, I guess is the question.
Well, yes. You know, in the last year or two, our attendance has picked back up again, not to what it was in the early 2000s, where it was having 400 plus riders a race. But yeah, there's the motorcycle riding's fragile. It's the expense. You know, if you're gonna if you ride till you're 18, if you go to college, you can't afford to ride. There's a lot of reasons that it's having a tough time, but it's I don't think it's not going to go away. Guys like you, Marty, and me are going to probably make sure that that doesn't happen the best we can.
Matt,
Go ahead.
sorry about that. What was really interesting, because I was up in Idaho, and I was talking to a gentleman with a motorcycle, been in the motorcycle. His dad was in the motorcycle business, and he retired at the sweet old age of like 70 some odd. Bill's Honda it was, and we were talking quite a bit with him, and he said, one of the things he saw, which I really didn't realize it was a big deal, but when the construction dropped off, a lot of construction guys had a little bit more cash to spend for dirt bikes and stuff like that. He saw a big drop off on the construction. And of course, in the last few years, I guess it started to pick up a little bit in the last couple of years, but prior to that, the construction was pretty much gone, right? I mean, it was tough, in the construction world, building stuff, the houses and all that kind of stuff is done. But so, there's a lot of play in there of what really makes a downturn in the motorcycle industry that may not be the motorcycle industry. It could be, like I said, the construction people doing that construction has got the cash to go out and buy stuff. It's just not there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I don't know if Jeff, if you see the same, but I know it's funny how everything's kind of related, right? I mean, if the jobs are down and you're not working, you're not, the economy swings hobbies, for sure. You see that all the time, no question about it. But hopefully the motorcycle racing and riding thing doesn't go away. I don't think it will. I think we just got to all try our best to provide opportunities, and sounds like you're doing that up there at Log Road, which is great. And I think, I saw on your website you guys do a sprint enduro, which I think is cool. You do the vintage. Is it you do ARMA or you do an AMA vintage race?
Our vintage races are just our own that we do before practice days.
Okay.
We run vintage races for, and some modern classes, just a few modern classes, like not A, B, and C's and stuff, mostly vet stuff. But we have classes even, for mini bikes or a 16-year-old. And that's actually growing for us. And we do that in the morning before a practice day, start at 8:30 and we're usually done by noon, 5, 6 motos, and then we running them twice, then we go into our practice day. And
do you run Saturdays or is it a Sunday program?
Sundays.
Sundays, okay.
Yeah, and our races are usually Saturdays and Sundays, and most of our practice days are Sundays. And the only reason for that is because my wife has to work half the Saturdays at the bank, and I'm not going to run a race or event unless she's there. It's too hard to.
Yeah, smart guy. You gotta make sure you got all the ammo in the chamber, if you will,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And just we're not advocating guns for everybody to calm down if they're in the audience. We don't need an email and a letter from your attorney. Come on now. But anyway, no, I think that's a great thing. I noticed the sprint enduro on the calendar, and I think that's really neat that you're doing that. Is this year 2 for you to do?
Yeah, this is the second year. The creator of that, Logan Densmore, he actually comes and sets up our track and does a lot of the work. And it's his series, and that's a good event. I like how they do that, with the 2 different timed sections, 1 lap at a time. So it's not like a hare scramble where you're going out there riding for 2 or 3 hours, before you get to stop. And it seems like a lot of people enjoy that.
Yeah, I've not tried it. I'm an enduro guy myself, traditional enduro. I would like to try one. We've talked, on a side note, we've talked as a club about doing one, down here in Toledo. And, just the club, I think, is a little more apprehensive about doing something that is new and we don't really know about, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
So we'll see what the future holds on that. But I'd like to race one just to see the kind of the operation of it and what we could do with it. We don't have moto area where we're at Heinz Farm, but I think we got plenty of land to work with.
Well, and you don't really need moto area. We cut on and off the track because we got less woods area to use. We got a lot of woods, but to me, most of our woods is kind of unrideable because it's low and it's mucky, and you start sinking up to your seat and stuff like that after you cut a rut and water starts coming up. So to me, that's not a lot of fun. But
no,
we run some of our pit area, and ours was more of an open area. But and we run some of our woods too where we could.
You've had vintage hare scrambles there, right? I remember seeing that somewhere, or am I wrong?
Yeah. We had vintage hare scrambles when we did have an ARMA National there. MX is also a national hare scramble. We've also had 2 or 3 District 14 hare scrambles there too.
How much land do you have?
Some of the woods that we can't use, it's probably like 15 acres of woods, maybe 20 acres of woods, but it's just low and it's muck.
You probably got to have it's got to be the right time, the right condition, everything to make it perfect. Yeah. We found that out year 1 and 2 of our race down here in Toledo, and we had a mudder in May and 17 and a inferno in 18, and last year was perfect, and we did it in September, and it's almost can't always plan on Mother Nature to help you sometimes, but yeah, Marty, I know you've, as a track operator, I remember seeing the Facebook posts, what was it, last spring, 2019, we had just too much rain. And
I think I ran 3 practices in the month of May. So it was just everything else was underwater, just been crazy.
yeah, it's, well, it's not much you can do about it, right? I mean, you just have to go with the flow and adapt and change. And what, kind of going back to your early part of racing, did you race just motocross, or did you ever try any trials or hair scrambles or any enduros or anything?
Um, I raced mostly motocross, and I actually did race ATVs for, when the four wheelers first come out for 3 or 4 years, and I did some ice racing and stuff like that. I did some when we'd go down to Georgia or Florida or someplace like that, or I'd do some off-road races um, too, but not that much, every now and then.
Gotcha. Um, do you have any influences at your track as far as seeing? I guess the question is, have you what have you seen as far as the dynamic between the racers and the over time? Is the racing gotten better in your mind, or been challenged at all?
Far as the
As far as
competition
the
of the racing,
Yeah, as far as the competition that you've seen at the track, I mean, is it more cutthroat now, or is it a little more laid back? Because I don't want to pick on the millennials, but they're they do things different, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But
yeah.
what do you see in the dynamics there?
I, I see where most riders are pretty nice to each other anymore, for the most part. That every now and then you might have somebody rough riding somebody, but uh, they're concerned about getting hurt or going to work, um, and you probably should be, because compared to years ago, you're going way faster too, so it's way easier to get hurt worse.
Right.
But yeah, I would say that most of your riders respect each other quite a bit right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Too, I think a little bit is the promoter, the track owner. I think, because way back when, and I remember, some of the races I was in, it was nothing. They had 3 or 4 fights in the pit area. So I think the culture's changed a little bit with the track owner side. I know it is a concern of ours. Of course, you're all thinking liability more than you are back, 10 years, 15 years ago. So we can't handle that or tolerate that type of mentality of out there banging bars and kicking and knocking people down. So I think all around, like say, you do have the better riders, but I think that the better riders really has come about because of the track owners, setting a little bit better rules and trying to get try to organize it a little bit better so you don't have that kind of things happen.
Yeah, you got the, whether it's AMA District 14 or the individual tracks, the AMA's got conduct rules now. District 14's got conduct rules. And we've had to enforce them a couple times, where you need to, give someone a letter, not very often, thank God, but, never to come back. It does happen still, but overall is not too much of an issue.
Well, that's good. And that shows, I think, the sport maturing a little bit, which is good. I remember as a kid, going to motocross races and seeing, people get into it, and it's like, I've had my, feathers ruffled, if you will, and have probably said things and done things in the woods somewhere that I probably shouldn't have, would do it differently now. Yeah, absolutely. But I remember as a kid watching people just get, all worked up, and it's like, looking back, it's like nobody there was making any money at it, like
Yeah.
you're not, myself included, I wasn't making any money at any of this stuff, so it's kind of like, calm down, just go out and enjoy it and have fun, and, let it ride a little bit.
And 5 years later, 10 years later, you laugh about it.
You laugh about it. Exactly.
Now
if you remember it, right?
I can't get out of the lawn chair fast enough to get riled up to anybody. So
yeah. This is a question, Jeff, that may ruffle some feathers. Who is the fastest guy or girl that's raced your track, in your opinion?
Man,
If you had to throw out a name, I hate to, this is a tough podcast here, Jeff. We're asking the tough questions, but
well, there's a couple of them, but when Nick Way was an amateur, he's probably been the fastest guy there.
yeah, yep. I raced against him one time at a Best Midwest at Delta, and I actually was ahead of him for like 4 corners. I had no business being ahead of him, but I remember him and Charlie Dunaway. I don't know if you remember that name.
Yeah.
They just blew right. I was on an 80, and they just blew right by me like I was sitting still. Them guys were so fast, and they were just back and forth. And I was a decent motocrosser, but not really overly good. But yeah, I remember seeing those on the names on the back of the chest protectors go by me like I was sitting still, and I'm like, oh. And then it was cool to watch them on TV then later down the road. It's like, yeah, I got passed by that guy, and I was on the same track, and but
I wanted to pick somebody, when they was at their amateur status. We weren't running that track. When Jeff Stanton was an amateur, but that is he only lives about 10 miles from the track, and
right.
So but there's a lot of fast guys. Brian Swink, and so it's hard to pick out just one. But
Michigan is notorious for popping up a really good motocross racer, here and there, and if you look at the Supercross or motocross results, you're generally, in all seriousness, I know our states battle between each other every, the last Saturday in September, but in all seriousness, you generally see in the result sheet a Michigan, Ohio rider somewhere in the field, especially outdoors. That's really cool. We all pull for them. So.
Yep. I root for them all the time. Of course.
Always.
Yep.
Who in I don't want to say old, but in their elder years is out there you see that's still running pretty fast?
Oh, yeah, you got guys like Larry Whitmer. He's still top guy in his class. I'm trying to think of a few right now. Usually I don't see him ride if I'm out there with them.
I know it. How about, I can't think, was it Custer? What's
Rick Custer? Yeah.
Rick Custer. He comes over every once in a while, and you see him, he's getting it out there, and he likes to go out and play with the younger guys too.
Well, and one of my good friends, and we worked together quite a bit and stuff like that, Terry Bidlack, and when we ride together, I rode at his place a couple weeks ago.
Because you're still actively riding yourself, right? In racing as well.
Yeah. I didn't ride too much last year, but I'm going to start riding again this year. Last year, I only rode 3 times. I just felt like I needed to take a break and, focus more on running the track, because especially as you get older, it's hard to race and ride race and work at the same time. You just got so much going on there.
Well, we do expect you to see up. You should be in the top end of that, or the first, second to win in the series. We're really expecting to see your name up there this year.
No pressure, Jeff.
No pressure.
Yes. Yeah. We're counting on you.
Yeah. Did we ask him what his favorite bike is? Now
no, it's on the list.
I'm going to say favorite bike, but I'm not going to say today's favorite. What do you think was your favorite bike overall?
Most fun.
And I got like 4 or 5 of them, CR250 Honda, 73, 74, 75s.
That seems to be a bike that you hear a lot of, from, forgive me, gentlemen, but from like your generations, that's, that 74 Honda, man, that was a good, I hear it from my dad. Boy, that was a good running bike. And,
it was an iconic bike, like a 64 Mustang, or something like that, whether it's the fastest or not, which it's fast, but it was it was a game changer. It's plus they made 1 million of them. You know,
Right.
So did you get into any of the old Makos or was it Odessas or any of those at all? Did you ever play
no,
around?
nope. I've always had Japanese bikes for some reason. I kind of wanted to get like an old Penton or KTM,
Yeah.
but I just it takes a lot of time to have one of those old bikes and race it.
Yeah.
Finding parts, and I know a lot about these, and so that's what I'm sticking with, I guess.
Today, what do you see out there that you think if you was going to go buy a new bike, what would you buy?
I've thought a few times about buying a KTM, but I'd probably buy a Honda. Yeah, that's what I've had for a long time.
Well, so many people say that you get a Honda, you get on it, and you ride away, and it fits you.
Yeah.
You know, where that you get on a KTM or Husqvarna or Suzuki or something else, you either got a lot, you like it or you don't. It's just one of those things that or you make it to like it. And I started out with what my first real bike was, if I want to categorize the Hadakas and the Benellis and that kind of stuff that I had was, I want to say a real bike. They were great bikes, but my first Husky that I had. So I'm back to Husky. I like it. It was always been a
White
good
KTM.
White KTM, and a two-stroke though. I am right. I'm back riding a two-stroke. But yeah, it's like I say, it's so interesting. Like you said, the old Hondas. Myself included had Hondas for so many years because my wife could ride it, my kids could ride it. I mean, it was just a bike you got on, and they lasted forever. I mean, they seemed like the bike that just seemed like going.
Yes. Yep. And I've raced a lot of Yamahas and Suzukis too. Never had a Kawasaki, but my current bike's a Honda. My last 3 or 4 bikes have been Hondas, and it's plus you get a few spare parts, levers, and everything like that. You hate rebuying all that stuff again.
So Matt, what we need to do is invite him over to the Maumee State Forest when it opens, and bring over the electric bike. Let him try the electric bike. Get the Volta out there for him, or maybe get him a KTM or a Husqvarna. Because I got both of those too. We'll get him over there, so we can let them run him through the woods with that and see how he likes some of these other bikes.
Yeah. Have you ever ridden at the Maumee State Forest? Just out of curiosity.
Oh yeah. We used to. Me and one of my other buddies from Defiance, Ohio. I live in Bryan, Ohio, is where I live.
Okay.
We used to, in the early '90s, that's where we rode all winter long. For a few years. They do some winter riding and try to stay in shape and stuff like that. So I haven't been there probably in 20 years. Maybe might be longer.
The invitation is open. Jeff.
Okay.
I live a mile and a half from the trail, so just pull in my house, jump on the bikes, and we ride them right over to the trail. So
that sounds like fun.
So come visit us.
Yeah.
The only problem is I can't keep up with probably either of you, so I can go along and sort of be the water boy and sort of follow along with you guys.
Have you ever, Jeff? Have you ever partaked in the? I'm assuming you have not, only because you're operating a motocross track. It's the prime time for moto. But you ever done the 6 days of Michigan?
No.
If you ever get a chance to do that, it is awesome. Like when that event is done, I look forward to going again. If you're a trail guy,
right.
There's some awesome single track courses. The state of Michigan is just loaded with it. But this year it's up in the UP. And my first time was 3 years ago. My dad and I went up and went into the UP there, and it was just him and I from the club. And then the year after, we drug probably 9 guys with us, and then last year I think we had like 13 with us, and this year it just keeps growing. So they always make a mention of the the club and the Great Lakes Trail Rider magazine about how the Toledo Trail Riders brings the most the most participants up there. But once you do it, it's so awesome. You ride you ride down the trail. You can ride to just riding into a restaurant or riding to a restaurant, walking in with your gear. it's like, this is just not right. This is not right to be walking in with my boots on and all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But it is so awesome. I just look forward to it. I can't wait till my boys are old enough and we can all ride together. It's going to be really fun.
Who is, I take the question was, who was your biggest competitor when you were heavily racing? What,
There you go.
Okay. Well, I I race at different tracks a lot, and I like to go to different places. So sometimes you race against new people, but um, I'd say the heaviest one would probably be, and I can't just name one person, would be Bob Bolenball, Barry Mayo, or Shay Fisher, which Shay helps us at the track. I've raced against those guys for years.
that's cool. Yeah, it's
I've
you know
heard
it's
of, I've
always
heard of that bowling ball fella.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
races at. Was he racing heavy at Delta for a long
Oh
time?
yeah, yes. And
Yep.
for year he hasn't probably raced in 10 years or so. He's a couple 3 years older than me, and but yeah, well, we always hung out pit together and raced each other, and probably wasn't happy with each other a couple times, but
but that's the cool part of it. They're competitors, but then you're hanging back at the pits together. Somebody's bike breaks down, and three of you are over there trying to get the bike ready to go for the next race. And so it's such a cool, and then it's the people I've raced with and that were close to what I did. It was just fun. I mean, you got in with them, and I don't want to say the competition went away, but it was just like, let's ride, and it just, your blood started getting rolling, and it was just it was competitor, yes, but just a great time to ride with them.
oh yes, yep, it was a lot of fun.
That's something I noticed over the years. A lot of guys that own their own companies or do their own thing, they're out there racing. They love that adrenaline. They love that competition.
Yeah, I could see that, and I'd agree. They're 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 motivated, and and got it. I guess you could say that about us. Why are we still riding? Especially me and Marty at our age or whatever. Right, because that's the only thing that we know how to do anymore. But
I think it's the business owners, and not only business owners, but other people too. It's the competitive nature that takes to be a business owner. I love competition. I mean, in the businesses I've been into, like I think I was telling you the other day, I used to be in the automotive industry, and my shop was right across from a dealer. I wanted to go to the biggest dealer there was in North Arizona, or in northern part of Scottsdale, and I want to go right across the street because I want to be as good as them or get better. And there used to be a gentleman out in Arizona that he was one of the first guys. At the time, I was probably back in the mid-20s. He was 50 some, and they called him Murphy, and he used to build the trails. He used to clean trails up and shut trails off, and this is stuff in the BLM land that there was no, he didn't owe anybody to do that, but he was sort of maintaining and sort of steward of the trails, and he always laughed at us because my buddy and mine rode together for so many years, and he goes, he asked us to ride. Well, first of all, when you're 20s and a guy that's 50 some asks you to ride because they're slow and we should be able to keep up with them, I'm thinking in my mind, this is not a good thing. these guys are going to kill us. And but it was funny because he says, you ride with squids, you ride like a squid. So competition's good. You get out there and like I say, I see with these little kids. These little kids are all about the same age. But one young man that rides at our track, he wanted to ride like Levinsky boy. It was so funny because I want to be as fast as him someday. Well, he rides pretty fast these days, So competition is a great thing. It's not a bad thing to be competition. It makes you better, makes you strive for something. And again, like what you said, the business people, same way. You're building a business, you want to get better, you want to do good, and so you strive at it. And that's probably why a lot of business guys are into the motorcycle stuff.
What kind of advice would you, talking about youngsters, what type of advice or what kind of advice would you give? Like my boys, they're kind of getting into it. I mean, what should I go upstairs and tell them? What should you do, boys, to get better?
Well, for one, the first thing is they have fun. that's the most important thing. As far as getting better, it's no different in your other sports. It's basics. It's not who can do the biggest jump or whatever. It's the basics of riding your motorcycle, holding your elbows up, weighting your pegs, being forward on it. That's what makes you. That's if you're trying to go fast. That's what makes you go fast.
Yeah, and I think the key word there was the F word, if you will, fun.
All your tracks are this way now. I don't even know. They got camping. You got other things to do. The camping's fun. Being at the event's fun. It's fun watching other riders ride. Even in my teens racing. And I'm from this area. I raced at Dirt Rider Park a lot, or Delta, back in the 70s, and I always walked around and watched other riders racing, or trying to learn from them and stuff like that. And I think what tracks offer now is just a whole fun environment. Whether it's
Right.
camping and racing, or hanging out at the track for the parents, which if you're at the track, you don't have to work when you're there, hopefully. So
Right. Well, I tell you, if you don't mind, Jeff, I'm going to give you my wife's cell number, and if you don't mind, just do like an anonymous call. Hey, fun camping. You guys might need a toy hauler, just
Yeah.
just to throw some, another angle at it there. But
yeah. Well, I don't know if that'll work. My wife, well, she works at our racetrack, so she's there all the time. And she used to go with me racing all over the place. But now, if I go someplace, even down to Florida or something, I'm not going to another racetrack.
Speaking of fun camping, a little vintage. I think the first time I ever met you or encountered you, Jeff, was at. Speaking of my kids again, is their most fun thing to go do with motorcycles is vintage days. Tell us how you kind of got into that. And I know you operate the track down there and build it and do all that. How did you get hooked up with that? And what's been your experience down there?
Well, got hooked up through that. Well, actually, before we did that, when Vintage Days was Arma, I would have been the regional guy at that year, but then they split from the AMA, so I'd have had some, helping with AMA Vintage Days. But Kip Bigelow becomes a motocross manager, amateur manager, and he asked me and my partner at that time, Bart, if we would build a track down there for Vintage Days. And it's a fun event. It's a cool event.
And I think you started doing that in 2011. Did I read that right?
Yeah, it could be. I can't remember. But
that's according to the internet, and everything on the internet's true. I don't know if you guys
it's probably been about that long. Yeah.
Well, I remember I remember you kind of going in the bulldozer there and seeing you as we're setting up the hare scramble track and the start line, and we don't do it that way anymore, but we used to run the hare scramble. The first lap was on the motocross track, and that was a lot of fun for the riders. And I tell you that, for those that don't know about that event, the AMA Vintage Days, which is generally the second weekend in July, that is just an awesome event. Like my boys, I told them a couple weeks ago with this coronavirus, and I said, boys, don't be surprised if we're not going to Vintage Days this year. And it was just such two long faces, and they love riding around with their grandpa and the Mastons and the friends and all the. I mean, it's just it is just so awesome. The whole thing is awesome.
Yeah, and that event is, especially last year, is just getting way bigger. And there's a lot to do. It's just not. It's not about as much vintage as just motorcycling as a whole. They got all kinds of vintage races, but they got demos like KTM's had demoing new bikes down there, and different types of shows, and it's a cool event.
We got to get Marty down there. and
Yeah.
I think he would really enjoy it. And I'm hoping. I don't know if you knew that we're, kind of on a side note, we're doing the Paul Schlegel movie. I'm hoping to maybe drag Paul down there and kind of parade him around a little bit and do some promo stuff for Paul, because there's a lot of people that know Paul, obviously, and he has said he goes to that, but I don't know how consistent he does. But yeah, the whole thing, the swap meet and it's just you feel so free there, and everybody gets along, and it does get a little rowdy, if you will, or a little wild at times, especially over where we're camped with the the outlaw riding going on, in that field. But
Oh yeah.
it was muddy last year, and guys were flipping UTVs and dirt, but it was just, there was probably 1,000 people standing there watching this just outlaw deal in the field, and my boys were just like, "Oh my gosh," So it was a lot. It's a lot of fun.
You can't take those old guys anywhere, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even the kids; it was the old guys.
Exactly.
You take a great event like that, and what makes it even better is when it rains so much like it did down there, and everyone's stuck in the mud, and it just seems like people are having more time or fun when they got all that stuff going on.
Oh yeah, the first day we pulled in, it was so muddy, and there was an old school bus stuck in the mud, and this Suzuki Samurai, you probably remember the guy. He was just driving around for 3 days pulling people out of the mud, and he was yanking this bus and trying to get him out. And I said, I'll help you. So I got my Chevy Duramax out, and we both yanked him out of this big, huge rut. And, it's just that kind of stuff. You kind of just let loose and, have fun. My wife's nervous as heck as, for 3 or 4 days, but, we keep the boys alive. We shower them every night and feed them, and they just eat it up.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about that is Mid Ohio furnishes the 4-wheel drive tractor that we use down there every year, and well, I was down there a week before and seeing how soft it was and everything like that, and was doing a little bit of prep work then, and I decided to make an extra trip and take our 4-wheel drive tractor down there because they had to use theirs to pull people out all weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Had a tractor.
So what track is your best? What's the best track you ever been to?
Well, again, I'm not a favorite person. I like going every place, but one track that the last couple of years that day is open that we made sure to make every event, and it was a really good track, was Brighton, Michigan, Iron Mustangs.
Wow. Now, the only thing I know about Brighton is they got this little hump in the middle of town, and they call it a ski area.
Yep, and it was just before that, and it's to the right.
Oh, okay.
Mount Brighton. Wow. And I don't know how much of the track is still there, but basically Target parking lot wasn't against the pits on one end of it, and, it was expanding. But it was a pretty cool track, and, they had great big turnouts.
Wow.
There sometimes, I remember one time for a spring fling, I think there's like 80 of us in the 30-plus class.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. And that place is no longer, just to clarify?
Yeah, no longer. Their last season was in 96.
Okay.
So a long time ago. But I would say that a lot of people would probably say that was one of their favorite tracks. Irish
Hills, like that one?
Yeah, that was kind of one of my favorites too. I raced there in the early 90s. I haven't been there for a while either. I think it's been a way long time.
You get greater attendance with racing or practice?
That flip-flops around, from time to time quite a bit, but there's more practice riders out there right now than racers, I would say.
Yeah. It's weird how that's kind of inconsistent. You wonder why, but
well, I think some of your people that's raced for a few years, they want to ride, but not necessarily. Racing's a lot of work. You got to be there early. You got to have all your stuff ready. Practice riders, and I've actually seen where people, if we run noon to 5 for a practice day, some of them won't come in till 2, and some of them are leaving at 2. They get their couple of rides in and they're happy, and they got other things to do. So
well, racing is such a big commitment, especially as you progress and get better. You're just outside of actually going to the races, you're hopefully riding through the week. You're eating right, you're training, you're exercising, you got a wrench on your bike, and
Yeah.
I mean, I miss all that stuff, but it is a lot of work, no question. What do you do for fun? What do you like to go do? Do you and your wife travel? Do you like to golf? Do you like to vacation, or what makes you tick a little bit outside of the motocross
Well,
stuff?
my daughter, she lives down in Indianapolis, so we go down there, for the weekend. And we went on a couple of vacations with them, like the Gettysburg, Washington D.C., or someplace else that I can't think of right now. But yeah, I guess we're kind of boring people. We don't have time, I don't think. But mostly when we got time, we go down and visit her down there.
Sure, sure. Well,
Yeah.
family's important, and
Probably a lot of people don't really realize what time you have for yourself to do. So, if you're, during the week, I know for me, I spend 2-3 days at the track, and, then you have Saturday or whatever, going on for your practice or whatever you got going. So I don't know, when do you start working on the equipment, when do you start making sure the fuels and everything you got your fuel in stock, when you start working on the track? You start about the beginning of April, or?
Well, the equipment I started as soon as race season was over. I usually got big projects like my 850 dozer. I built a set of rippers for it this winter, which took a lot of time, and I did a lot of other work to that. But usually I got a couple major projects going on there, and I never get all the maintenance done that I need to do. As far as that actual track, which, well, this is real late for us to be starting. We haven't started yet. But yeah, I've worked on the track a little bit. Normally, I don't work on the track till just before the first event, because, like, a couple days, because I have it prepped up. And when you're starting early in March, you don't want to be digging anything up or making it loose till right before, because if it rains, it doesn't dry very good then. And but just on the facility, we've been putting fencing up, and I've been working on that the last couple of weeks, and like I said, running a fiber optic line, and working on around our pond, or it's more like a water puddle that we use for the water truck. That was pretty full of muck, and I cleaned that out last fall, and there's always something.
Yeah, I'd say that. I think people really don't realize what it takes. Like I say, we usually service our equipment at the end of the year, and then I usually do a somewhat of a light service, before we start, make sure everything's good. And we use our equipment a little bit during the wintertime at home, and so we do that. But like I said, there's so many other than just touching the track. You've got your fences and you've got your repairs. You always got a fence that's heaving or something to that fact, or somewhere along the lines, electric line is quit, and you got to figure out how come, what for. The little mouse had made his dinner. So it's like, say, so really, I guess what the point I was trying to make is, you get done at I don't know, when's your last race practice? November.
In October usually.
November, October.
Yeah.
So basically November, you finally quit the racing, and probably, like you said, service everything, get everything all done, and you're all done. So there's the month of November. So then you got December, January, and February. That's really that you can do your own thing with, because then right next thing you know, you're thinking, oh, here comes March again. So
yeah.
So you have a very short window to do anything on your own, to be able to do stuff. So
yeah, I had a kitchen project and family room project that I started last year that I got mostly done. I was going to finish it this winter, and I didn't get a chance to do that.
Well, my wife does landscaping, and this will be the first year that we actually have our own home landscaped before August. So usually she's right into it, and she doesn't even get a chance to even touch ours until August. So this year she's got her done. So yeah, it's been an interesting year, and I think hopefully we're seeing maybe somewhat of a light at the end of the tunnel, if you want to say. I'm not sure it's going to be a month or 2 months or what it may be, but we're hoping to see some good outcome, and everybody stay safe and be healthy coming up. So I went to my drawer tonight to see if I could find a Log Road T-shirt is this like really bad? Picking on him a little bit. I couldn't find a Log Road T-shirt, so I put on Championship Power Sports because I see him at Championship quite a bit. He's over there with the boys, so I figured he wouldn't get too upset. Than me wearing an MX Express shirt, So.
Oh, that doesn't bother me at all. And the guys at Championship, they're good guys.
Yeah.
I got a good relationship with them. You got a good relationship with them, and they're good for sport. And same thing, they're as much motocross as we are.
Oh yes,
more maybe.
They provide a lot of stuff to us. We do a little giveaway usually every event we have, every practice stuff, whether it be a pair of goggles or a gas can or whatever. And they provide this stuff all the time for us to give some stuff away to the little guys and some of the big guys and stuff. So no, they've helped us a lot too, and we really appreciate there. But hint, I just don't have one of those Long Road T-shirts.
I can find. Let's see if I have one.
Was that
Marty?
I get a couple of you guys.
Was that pretty bold?
Well, Marty, you walked all the way around the whole house to get in the front door to ask him for a T-shirt.
That was terrible. Yeah. Anyway, we got there.
We got there. That's all that matters. My father-in-law said that one time. He goes, he was helping my oldest with Common Core math. Okay, and he goes, I don't understand this. You got to walk around the whole house to get in the front door with this math. I'm like, that's like a perfect analogy,
It is.
It makes total sense, But do you have any, Jeff? Do you have any sponsors you want to thank that people that help you out? I know your wife's a big part of your program, but do you have any sponsors you want to plug out there on the podcast?
Oh yeah, Championship, of course. They help us out with some giveaways, and that's where I get my bikes. Lonnie's worked on my bike a few times for me and did some special stuff for me that I wanted. Mad Mike Butler, that does track vending at our track. He's a lot of help too. Of course, my wife already told me I had to mention her.
That's right, the boss.
Smart man, Jeff.
Yeah.
Smart man.
And the people that help us at the track too. I got some key workers that are good workers because no matter what, you can't do it by yourself. You need to have, whether it's a starting line or finish line and registration or pay gate and that type of stuff or flaggers. You got to have everyone that's kind of on the same page and, to make it a safe, fun event to run.
Yep. Got to thank the team, the team. And, that's absolutely true. Well, we certainly appreciate you, Jeff, coming on, and we'd love to have you on again. I hope you enjoyed this. And
I do.
And, yeah. This is a new adventure. Again, we're not podcast experts, not quite yet. Hopefully, by the time YouTube shuts us down, we'll probably be a dang expert at it. But hopefully that it don't happen. But we hope to build the audience and again really promote folks like you and. Different track operators. We're hopefully, a lot of people you mentioned names are on our list to talk to. So we'll see where this path takes us, but all the best to you this season in 2020. Hopefully your track gets open and ready to go and get this virus out of the country so people can start enjoying your track and get out racing and riding again. So any parting thoughts, Marty, on your behalf?
Yeah, I just want to thank Jeff, guys. Like I said, he's been a big part of our operation and, just getting it started and doing that. And again, what we hope out of this is that, a lot of people don't see you out there because you're out there working, you're out there in the dozer, you're out there working. So, this will get an opportunity to see who is Jeff Beerbower, because like I say, when you're out there track, it's like sometimes you're just running. So you don't get to chat with us. So I do it differently. I make all my guys work and then I just walk around the track and talk to people. So they knew who I am. They just don't know anything else.
That's baloney, Marty. You know that. So I've seen you in action. So
So no, it's good though. I really appreciate getting the chance to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a while. Like I said, I think I saw you last time I saw you. I think it was you were at championship. So it's good. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I know my boys. I don't know if you noticed, but we're rotating Saturdays and Sundays now this year, and the whole reason is they want to race. So
Okay.
So now they can come out on Sunday because before we've always been running practice on Sundays. So
Yeah,
they said this. Go ahead.
yeah, I think I was up to your place once last year to run. I went up there with a buddy in the springtime,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get places, but I did see that you're rotating some Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, I say that my guys just said, hey, we want to ride. We want to race a little bit.
Yeah.
And, other than what we're doing, they can ride at our place anytime they want, but it's riding at our place. That's not the fun part. It's going out. Like I said, the favorite track is by far Log Road around here, and getting out to Red Button once a year. We try to always do that on the 4th of July. We try to make that a family affair. But hopefully now that we're doing that, I can come out and visit too. I'm not the biggest, fastest motocross rider, but I can go out there and ride with the kids, I guess. So.
Yeah, well, I think at our age, none of us are the fastest no more.
I was riding with the girls, but the girls were beating me. So there's usually 2 or 3 little guys that can't quite beat me yet. So I'm not last most of the time.
Yeah, well, if you have fun, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Thank you so much, Jeff.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you, and we appreciate it. And on behalf of Marty Wheeler, I'm Matt Bucher. This is the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, episode number 2.